All right, here we are with what is the last part in this, triple feature so far of my visual novel website, I guess progression is the word you'd use. And this one's still unfinished, so this is probably I'm gonna name it something like in progress. Like it's gonna have a more, I guess not clickbaity name, but those names, they were the content of the video. So, but you probably know what I mean. But yeah, I wanted to go over my current iteration of this website and kind of my more modern website development sensibilities, as well as it's not done, but I still kind of want to go over the content of what I do have done and how I work with that because it is a lot, I guess. So starting off, well, I didn't open the scripts. That's not what I meant, but sure. So here is a very what looks to be a very simple page, and it still is simple. This is one of the ones I don't have too much stuff on, but you'll notice some things. So just going from the top down, it has two style sheets. So what I've done is basically there's a 9 pages here. We'll get to the components in a second, but there's 9 pages here. So a lot of them share the same styles. There's a lot of stuff that carries over, but there's some pages that just as an example, every page has a different background image. So having that in its own style sheet instead of like, for example, giving the body a class, I think works better just having a separate style sheet and then you can do whatever. And maybe just another example is say your paragraphs. You want them all black on every page about one. So what you can do in your main style sheet is have it, black in every uh, page, and then basically override it by having the styles after be the newest ones, the ones after loaded after. So it overrides and that sort of thing. So it is very useful. This is the first time I've used multiple style sheets, but that's just because of how many pages are on this, plus just the combination of how I do things now, plus biggest website I've worked on since I've started doing things like this. Then, like I said, going from the top down, icon, that's pretty standard. But then we have this empty div with an ID. So this is how I use components. So the header is on every single page. This is what it looks like. Pretty simple stuff. This isn't even technically an HTML file because no, it doesn't have your doc type HTML, which these two are basically what make it HTML. Head and body are common, like basically every website, but I don't think they technically make it, load properly. So, this is basically just part of a website. And I think you could basically put it in any file, as long as, it's proper syntax, but since it's HTML, an HTML file makes the most sense because in uh, VS Code at least, you'll get the highlighting and everything proper. But, just having this doesn't make the header load in. You need JavaScript for that. So basically make a promise, and then typically what if when you are fetching something, you're typically fetching something from the internet. Biggest example is API, but you can still fetch stuff from, I guess you call it from yourself. So this is what it does. It basically, there's three things that are used across every page. So it fetches, waits for a response, which it doesn't really wait because from yourself. I mean, it loads, but that's a very small time. And then it gets element by ID. It basically takes this, in this case header, and then sets it to the content of whatever has this ID, the header container. And these do the same thing for the other three. And then it has a catch, so if it doesn't work, which uh, it won't work, like these are separate fetches, so this could not work, this could not work, this could not work. On the way it will error out or fall into this catch block is if goodness word if it something doesn't have an ID. So if this page didn't have a header container, it would return that error. And then, so that's what that does. And then there's a finally, so this happens after everything, is add event listeners function. And the reason why is because of how the JavaScript is loaded. The event listeners are added, would be added before the content is loaded in. So I just have this just to be safe. In this case, I don't think it makes a difference because these are expandable stuff. That's its own thing. But this is a just in case. So if I want to add, an event listener to the footer for whatever reason, if I didn't have it in this finally, because this finally just calls this function, if I didn't have it in the function, then uh, it basically just wouldn't add the event listener. So that's how I kind of do that. And I started doing this or I did this once before on my portfolio website, and I have it slightly different, and I'm actually going to change it because I have the add event listeners. I forget where, but it's not in the finally. So if it errors out, it just doesn't add the event listeners, which is not good. But these are things I'm using on every page, so that's why they're even here in the first place. But if I was using some of these across maybe 2 pages, obviously having that not in the finally would cause errors or cause issues. And that's the same thing for the footer, which is on every page in these icon bars, and you'll see those in a second. So this is kind of like it's basically 2 rows of images on the left and right side of the page. And then footer is pretty much what you expect. It's the smallest one. And I actually use this kind of same footer design on one of my um, school made websites, but I kind of like it. And yeah, so I guess I can go into the other, what this is. So actually, no, this is pretty easy. Basically, if you click, it adds a class. So looking to the styles for that'll be better. So I'll start from the top here. So root, these are just variables. This, since it's root, it goes every, I can't remember if it's every file or like every kind of a website file, quote unquote, or every just CSS file. I'd assume just every CSS file, but basically anything in the styles folder can access these colors. And these are just variables so that you don't have to say I want this to be red instead. Um, Instead of changing it for everything that uses this color, I can just, change it here. Body stuff, that's basic, A tags. Card is also pretty basic. It's just, I don't even think I use any cards in this. This is just something that, no, I do use cards. I thought maybe that was something that I wanted. But no, this is something I do use. Pretty simple. It's just, you'll see it, but it's just rows of squares, 3 by 3, and or 3 by infinite, I guess. But then, smaller screen sizes, it goes down. So that, that's what these are for. So it repeats, so if it's not overlapping, is what I'm trying to say. And then list stuff, basic container. This is for the rows of images. Image wrapper, that's just I think that was for this as well. Yeah, that's just for those. Because those are kind of a little bit hard to make. They're not hard to make, but they're hard to, I guess, get working properly, in a way that it'll be responsive. And I kind of cheat on that a little bit. I'll actually jump into one of these quickly. So this isn't like set perfectly yet, but on smaller screen sizes, I have to basically just move that container down a bunch. So that's part of why I have separate CSS files for every page, because that's not going to be the same number every time. But I haven't really figured out a way to do those bars of icons properly on smaller screens, basically. Everything else about them works properly, but they basically overlap the content. And actually, no, I could probably get them working properly, just not the way I want, is what I'm trying to say, because they kind of overlap the screen on smaller screen sizes. So what I wanted them to do is go to the very bottom and then just be like an 8 by 4 grid, but instead I'm doing this, which I could still do the 8 by 4 grid, but or not 8 by 4, 8 by 2, but or not 2 by 4 because it equals 8. But for now, I'm doing this. I'm not too worried about that right now because I'm not really worried about smaller screens as a lot of people do mobile first, but this is, in my mind, this is a very desktop site. And then I still want it to work on mobile. It's just, this is the primary way you would probably be seeing it because there's a lot of text. But, and this still does work and it still is, responsive. It's just maybe I want to find a better way to do that. And then back, I really sidetracked there. So that's for that. Main is also, I basically, some stuff does not work the way I want it to unless it's all in a main class and I can't put everything in there in the body to look how I want. So that's what that's for. And then, center, that's pretty self-explanatory. Round, spin, hover, footer, and then here's the expandable stuff. So it works with the JavaScript. So basically, you have an effect with a drop-down menu. There's an arrow pointing this way, and then when you click it, it rotates down to indicate that it's basically kind of like opening a tab, and then the actual content of the thing shows up. A full animation. It's hard to explain, but you'll see it. So that's what all of these for. There's the basically the bar, then the content, and then there's an icon that you click as well. And then these are obviously for anchor tags within that. So these are unrelated to the actual expandable. Same with the paragraph. Then marquee, I mentioned that before. This works the exact same as on the 2.0 website, so the last video. And then same with the animation. And then image container. This is just because I wanted a specific part to have the anchor tags work in a different way. And then these are just so that, once again, for a specific part, I wanted two images to be side by side instead of stacking on top of each other. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. There's the basic stuff in here, but that's better shown in the actual website. So let me open that up. So here's the main page. I haven't really worked too much on that because it's going to be easier. Well, one, I mentioned last time, the way I'm doing this is that these all work as their own separate pages. So this is the big website that's going to make them all together. So I'm basically focusing on one, two webs of these pages at the same time, so that then when I'm done, then I have something to show on its own, and then when they're all done, I have this to show as well. So basically, I'll have 9 things to show off once I finish this main one. But that, like I said, that's going to take a while. So that's why this is a can be its own website, not just its own page. But I still want to work on it all together because I like this stuff. So main page is the least important of that because it doesn't matter until basically all 8 of these are done. But yeah, this is what I mean. So if I make it smaller, you'll see. So see, it's kind of overlapping, but then because of how I have it, it just goes to the bottom, which that actually I think that looks pretty good. And then, but I have to change it so that, for example, on this page, it would be like right under the footer, basically. So then, like I said, I'm working on 1 or 2 at the same time. All of these, except for the 2 that I'm currently working on, look the exact same except for the background image. So I'll go here. See, this one's very pink and white. So this is the biggest one so far. I did a lot of stuff for it. So I won't like read it off or anything, but I'll kind of show. So this is a bad game or a visual novel clan ad. And this, I still have to change this. This is a small change, but because of when I was refactoring this website, um, It basically ended up being that these anchor tags are white instead of black, but that's obviously an easy fix. And then, brief summary. And then also you probably noticed that I use this on my, uh, one of my website, or my first web app is what I'm trying to say. And it originates, I think my first use of these was in that 2.0 website. And then I made this 3.0 pretty quick after that, and then it was probably assignment. But see, these look pretty nice. These are from like Ion Icon, so I didn't even, these aren't built in, but I didn't make them either. So see, uh, there's also a tutorial. It's slightly different, but there's a tutorial on how to do this on YouTube, which is the one I followed, but then the slightly different one is actually on uh, W3 Schools, which has a lot of stuff that you might, excuse me, that's you might want to look at if you're trying to do specific stuff. So these are all the same, but kind of the way I do it. This is literally the exact same as these, except for it's defaultly open and the icon's removed, so you can't open or close it. And it makes for a pretty neat, so, you want to focus on these, but then these are kind of reviews. So, maybe you don't really care about them too much, and it would be a lot to scroll through if you couldn't close them. And then this is what I was talking about with the 3 by 3 or just the grid in general. So if I go see they're stacked on top of each other like that, pretty much how you'd expect them to be. And then if you click them, it goes to a separate image. These are actually um, small like this is a separate image from this. It's not cropped, and that's just because I felt it easier to do it that way. And then music, same as this, except for the grid is YouTube videos. And then that's the same, and then it's a simple format, but I really like it. And I stop here. I basically cover the entire visual novel, and then I haven't started on the anime part yet. And then after this, I go. Let me scroll down. I go to movie, but then probably because I want to get the individual website for this done in a timely manner, I'm probably gonna stop here because I go see. I basically do. I'm gonna stop at the movie because after that there's an entire 28 chapter manga. Then two. This one's pretty sizable. This one not so much, but two entire other games basically, and then on top of that, a bunch of fan games as well, which are shorter but still. And then here's the footer, which takes you back to the top. That takes a second to load in. I'm not quite sure how I do it yet. Maybe I could split this up into separate pages just for this on its own. But that took it didn't take a long time, but it did take a good second to load in. So I'll have to consider that as well. And then the other section, this one's a more recent start, but basically I'm gonna work on this for a little bit. I basically just want to get it to the point that I had on the 2.0 website because, you know, I'm further along on everything total on this, but I didn't really do this section too much, and I had some content from that I want to basically reuse. So I want to get up to that point on this page and then just stop working on it, go back to the other one, finish it, go back to this one, finish it, and then start something new. But yeah, originally I wasn't planning on making these all look similar, and I might still not do that, but as is, for this one at least, I like how these drop downs and I guess not drop downs work for this. And then here these look nice, and what I was talking about in some of my previous videos where on hover it has the underline to show it can be clicked along with the mouse hover. And sometimes I would do no different color as well, but for these I like having just the underline. So yeah, and then I'm just up to this point where I have these lists, or probably better to show the list. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can see it's not a lot total, but it's just this is kind of like an on and off. It's a personal project. It's not me hammering away at it. You know, for well, some days, sometimes, a few hours at a time, but you know what I mean. Got more important stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I guess one thing, a small note, is that this header is different from the original. I just like it better. And I'm probably, on this page at least, I'm probably going to make these just pure white instead of white with an outline, because with this big text looks really nice. This, the text is too small that the outline basically looks like it's spotty and not too good. So that might change the background on this, haven't decided yet. But yeah, basically everything I have left to talk about are design decisions, so that's not too completely interesting. So yeah, I think I'm pretty much done on this one, and see you next time.